46. God and the city. Abraham, we are told, looked for a city which hath foundations, whose builder and maker is God. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 10. The city, we are commonly told, is not in this world, because we are plainly informed that it is an heavenly city. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 16. That is, it's in heaven. Such an interpretation reduces the text to nonsense. First, if Abraham was looking only to a city in heaven, then why was he called to go out to a place which he should after receive for an inheritance? Hebrews chapter 11, verse 8. And why should he regard this as a beginning for that city of God? Second, why then is the place of sojourn called the land of promise? Hebrews chapter 11, verse 9, if somehow it was unrelated in a physical sense to the city of God. If the city were only in heaven, Abraham could have sought it equally as well in Ur. Third, the word translated heavenly is in the Greek literally eperanios, in heaven, but it must be read in view of Hebrews chapter 11, verse 14. They seek a country. Country in Greek is patris, fatherland. The city is heavenly because its builder and maker is God. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 10. It is covenant man's fatherland, but it is a fatherland which is to come on earth. The Lord's Prayer is emphatic here. Thy will be done in earth as it is in heaven. Matthew chapter 6, verse 10. Abraham was in Canaan to lay the groundwork for that city, and the coming of Christ opened up the way for its construction on a large scale. Fourth, in Revelation chapter 21, verse 2, the city of God is shown as coming down from God out of heaven. This means an historical realization as well as an eternal order. To limit the city to eternity is to destroy Scripture. The first manifestation of that city was the Garden of Eden. Man's sin barred him from that city, and Cain then created a false city, the city of man. In the New Jerusalem, which is both garden and city in one, the city of God returns. It is the bride, the Lamb's wife. Revelation chapter 21, verse 9. That is, it is the church, the kingdom, the covenant people and community, the totality of the redeemed world of Christ. Fifth, in its eternal perfection, the city of God is marked by perfect sanctification, perfect law-keeping, so that there shall in no wise enter into it anything that defileth, neither whatsoever worketh abomination, or maketh a lie, but they which are written in the Lamb's book of life. Revelation chapter 21, verse 27. It is the community of the justified and sanctified. It is a city, the city. Just as the essence of law and the major part of law is unenforceable because it rests on faith, so the city requires a common faith to be a city. Without this common faith, the city disintegrates. The city is designed to be a community, which means life in common and life close together. We want to be in proximity to loved ones and friends. We want nearness to people of a like mind and faith. Earlier, the city was a walled area, keeping out enemies and ensuring that those within could preserve and develop their community. Cain tried to create a community without God, Genesis chapter 4, verse 17, based on the principle of the fall, Genesis chapter 3, verse 5, that every man is his own God, but the anarchy inherent in his position became apparent in his descendant Lamech. Lamech asserted his autonomous right to kill anyone who offended him. Genesis chapter 4, verses 23 and 24. Such a position makes community impossible. A city requires a common faith, law, and life. Lamech's position made all three impossible. As humanism reaches its logical development, as epistemological self-consciousness sets in, city life becomes progressively impossible. Rusher has observed. But most of the large cities of America have experienced their share of deterioration in recent years, and several in the East, Philadelphia, Cleveland, and Detroit, all spring to mind, are right up there with New York in the percentage of their area that has become an urban wasteland. In the South Bronx and Upper Manhattan of New York City, and corresponding regions of other major cities, mile after mile of residential buildings have been abandoned to the criminals who made them uninhabitable. The whole area has a bombed-out look and a wonder. Concurrently, of course, we have seen the flowering of the suburbs, the green belt, where children can still play and go to school in reasonable safety. But the suburbs now see the same rise of crime. According to the police, 52% of the crimes in suburbs in 1975 were committed by youth living in the neighbourhood. Smaller cities and towns are also seeing a rapid rise in crime. As the infection of humanism spreads, anarchy and lawlessness increase, and community collapses. The result is an unusual trend, the flight from the city to the countryside in order to live and work in peace. In the Bible, the city is a place of justice, where justice is administered at the gate, because the gate was the place for town council meetings, court sessions, public hearings, and all necessary administrations of justice. The gate was an important symbol to the Hebrews. C.C. McGowan was right when he stated, "Gate stood for justice." When Eliphaz speaks of men being crushed in the gate, he speaks of the horror of injustice. Job chapter 5, verse 4. In Nehemiah, the beginning of the rededication of Jerusalem to community life was the public reading of the law at the gate and its acceptance by the people. Nehemiah chapter 8, verses 1 to 18. Without God's law, the city was and is a place of evil, and before long, not a community, but a place of court warfare between opposing forces. The triumphal arches at the gates of Rome were placed in terms of this background. The gates, as the place of justice, was a place where victory over the enemies of the community was celebrated. Basic to citizenship in the ancient city was atonement. Whether pagan or biblical, the city knew that law and community require a common faith, that the foundation of city life is a common faith. The humanisms of pagan antiquity, not having the epistemological clarity of modern humanism, did not disintegrate urban life as the modern form of humanism does. It is apparent now what Psalm 127 verse 1 means when it declares, "Except the Lord build a house, they labour in vain that build it. Except the Lord keep the city, the watchman waketh but in vain." As Leopold comments, the unseen but all-important factor is that God must bless what man does. Stated more drastically, he himself must build the house and guard the city. On the human side, this means that the foundation of family and city life is faith and the law, justification and sanctification. A revealing insight into the centrality of the discipline of law in the life of man is Proverbs chapter 25, verse 28. "He that hath no rule over his spirit is like a city that is broken down and without walls." The discipline of God's law is the protection of a man and of a city. We cannot read rule over his spirit in terms of modern humanistic ideas of self-discipline. It means the submission of our being to the law of God. Seest thou a man wise in his own conceit? There is more hope of a fool than of him. Proverbs chapter 26, verse 12. The fool is not anarchistic in principle as the man is who is wise in his own conceit. Where God's law is the basis of civil government, as the messianic Psalm 72 declares, and where Christ is king, they of the city shall flourish like grass of the earth. Psalm 72, verse 16. According to Leopold, the cities are thought of as being the very acme of prosperity and success, men thriving in them and growing in thick profusion, as does the grass of the field. It is not surprising that it is in Christendom that capital formation, industry and technology have flourished. Where there is no law, there is no community. As a result, a major part of a man's capital goes then to protection against crime, and progress becomes difficult. A recent article on a man in a foreign country whose annual gross income in 1974 was over $4 million stated that his personal profit over and above normal expenses was modest because of the necessity to bribe civil officials in order to function with any freedom or at all. Moreover, in a pagan society, accumulated wealth does not lead to social production as much as to personal power and pleasure. It becomes non-productive wealth. The Hebrew word for city means an enclosed space, a protected area, a walled place. The English word city comes from the Latin citatas, which is akin to the Greek katai. He lies or is recumbent. Both the Greek and Hebrew meanings clearly imply safety. The safety of the city was its common faith and law. Where that common faith and law are eroded or denied, there is no safety. The safe place becomes then the dangerous place because the enemy is now entrenched within the city. The modern city is thus in crisis. The liberals seek to make further concessions to evil as a means of reclaiming it. The conservatives want to return to strict enforcement, assuming that the fruits of the law are possible without the roots. The enforcement of the law begins with an act of faith and then continues with the application of the law of that faith. Apart from this vital relationship, law is unenforceable, and the city is a nightmare.